we're kind of boxed in here.
Oh, because the chair doesn't move.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll try anything.
Okay. I don't know if, for the short period, I don't know how long you're going to be up there. If you have to take breaks so that you can move your leg. I don't know if you're going to be able to then prop your leg. Do you know what I mean? Oh.
Does that work? Okay.
I'll just look that far, but I'll give it a shot.
If you get really uncomfortable, then just
Let's get me out.
let us know that you need to take a break.
Okay.
Don't say it's because of your leg. Just indicate you need to take a break. Okay. Okay. Then you can bring the drink. Thank you. And remember, you all can remain seated for the drink. Thank you.
Jury entering.
Members of the jury, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Good.
Good. Did you all follow my instruction that I gave at the end of the day yesterday to not watch the local news, do any research, or talk with each other or anyone else?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. At this time, we're going to begin with the defense's presentation of evidence. Mr. Crawford, if you could remain seated and raise your right hand to be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may proceed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please state your name for the jury?
David Crawford
And where are you currently employed?
at the Osceola County Sheriff's Office.
And in what capacity do you work at the Osceola County Sheriff's Office?
I am a part of our traffic unit as a deputy sheriff.
And were you employed with the Osceola County Sheriff's Office back on February 27th of 2022?
Yes, I was.
And in what capacity?
As a canine handler, part of our traffic unit, but as a deputy sheriff.
And what sort of education did you go through prior to becoming a deputy?
I graduated high school with a diploma. I went through the Basic Law Enforcement Academy at TICO, which is in Osceola County.
And how long have you worked for the Osceola County Sheriff's Office?
Be 13 years in April.
And as part of your training in the academy, do you receive weapons training?
Yes, we do.
Does that include firearms training?
Yes, it does.
And back on February of 2022, what firearm were you carrying?
At the time, I was carrying a Glock 17.
Is that a firearm that you've received training on how to use?
Yes, I have.
And they teach you how to maintain and care for the weapon?
Yes.
And you learn about the specs of the weapon, specifications?
Yes.
And you learn about the functionality of the weapon?
Yes.
And do you learn how much force it takes to depress the trigger on a Glock 17?
Yes.
And how much force is that?
Objection calls for hearing.
It's a state.
You receive training on CEWs or tasers.
Yes.
When I say CEWs or tasers, you recognize those to be essentially the same thing, correct?
Yes.
A taser is a type of CEW.
Yes.
And where do you receive that training at?
We received training in the Law Enforcement Academy and at our agencies.
And did you take a taser training course in January of 2022?
Yes, I did.
Was that the first time you'd ever received taser training?
No.
So that's kind of updated training then?
Correct.
So that was that the month before the incident at the Wawa in February of 2022?
Yes, it was.
In that class, were you taught anything about using threats of force to gain compliance and resisting suspects?
Yes, we were.
What exactly were you taught?
That the verbal threat of using a taser is a de-escalation technique in order to gain compliance.
Did they teach you whether there was any other way to threaten the use of a taser to gain compliance?
Yes, that on the new Taser 7, the arc button is a form of de-escalation as well.
And we've already heard some testimony, but can you just briefly remind the jury of what arcing a taser is?
Arcing taser on the new Taser 7, they have the two buttons on the side that if you press it, that the front of the taser will arc, making a loud sound and activating it.
And you were taught in January 2022 that taser cores, that according to the training, is a valid means of de-escalation?
Yes.
That's a valid means of gaining compliance.
Yes, it is.
And are you taught that's a higher show or threatened use of force than just verbally threatening to use a taser?
Correct.
Now, you're familiar with the functionality of the trigger on the Taser 7?
Yes.
And you are familiar with the functionality of the trigger on a Glock 17 that you carry?
Yes.
How do the two triggers compare as far as the amount of force required to pull them back?
The Glock has more force you need to pull, and the Taser is more of a button like on a remote.
Now, during your training, have you ever heard the term muscle memory?
Yes, I have.
What is muscle memory?
Muscle memory is the repeated action where you do something the same way repeatedly every single time.
And where do you learn about that?
We learn about it in the basic law enforcement academy and through our agency training.
And going back just for one moment, back to the Taser training, do you know who develops the curriculum for the training that you received back in January 2022?
Axon.
Now, why is muscle memory important?
Muscle memory is important for law enforcement because in certain situations where it's high stress, high risk, sometimes we need to rely on our muscle memory where if we need to do an action, that it just comes second nature to us, that we don't really have to think about it. It's just a second act that we do constantly.
And how is muscle memory obtained?
By repeating the same action in the same way over and over and over again.
And specifically, are you trained to draw your weapon the same way over and over and over again?
Yes, we are.
Are law enforcement officers sometimes in fast-moving situations when they're in the field?
Yes.
Situations where they don't have time to think?
Yes.
As a law enforcement officer, what were you trained to do in a fast-moving situation where you don't have time to think?
To rely on our training and muscle memory.
And is this training that only you received, or is this standard training everyone in the Law Enforcement Academy received with you?
It's standard training.
Have you received any training on how to respond to suspects who fled from the police?
Yes, we are.
What does that training tell you?
That we are to assume that they're dangerous and that they would, given the opportunity, they would flee again.
In this specific case, did the manner in which you grabbed the suspect and took him to the ground off the motorcycle comply with your training?
Yes, it did.
And you received your training from an accredited police academy?
Yes, I did.
Do all law enforcement officers in Florida have to receive their training from an accredited police academy?
Yes, we do.
So back on February 27th of 2022, on that specific day, were you working on duty as an Osceola County Sheriff's Deputy?
Yes, I was.
How did you first become involved in the sequence of events that culminated in your confrontation with Jean Barreto Berga at the Wawa gas station at 3951 Central Florida Parkway in Orlando?
I had heard a call for service for an aggravated assault involving dirt bikes pointing guns at motorists.
And you said aggravated assault. Just for the jury's sake, can you explain what you mean by that? What is an aggravated assault as it relates to firearms?
Aggravated assault is where someone would threaten or point a firearm at someone else.
And is that a felony in the state of Florida?
Yes, it is.
Did you hear any follow-up transmissions about that?
Yes, I did.
Did you hear those over the police radio?
Excuse me. Yes, I did.
And generally speaking, police radios, when you were working on duty as a sheriff's deputy, are all the other sheriff's deputies who are working in the same area as you all on the same channel?
Yes.
So if you were to hit the button on the radio and speak into it, all the other deputies hear what you're saying, correct?
Who are on the same channel? Yes.
And vice versa, if there's other deputies and they hit the button, speak into it, you could then hear their transmissions, correct?
Correct.
Did you hear any follow-up transmissions about the suspect of the aggravated assault?
Yes, I did.
And who from?
Deputy Kofinas.
Now, do you work with Deputy Kafinas?
I do.
And do you know him well?
I do.
You talk to him often?
I do.
Do you listen to him over the radio often?
Yes, I do.
And so you're able to recognize his voice?
Yes.
Do you know who Deputy Teams is?
Yes, I do.
Do you work with him?
Yes, I do.
Do you know him well?
Since the basic law enforcement academy, yes.
So it would be safe to say you've known him your whole career?
Correct.
Do you talk to him often?
Yes.
Do you listen to him over the radio often?
Yes, I do.
So you can recognize Deputy Teams' voice as well?
Yes, I could.
Did you also hear his voice over the radio?
Yes, I did.
And I'm specifically referring to February 27, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Did you know what his assignment was on that day?
He was the deputy inside the sheriff's office helicopter who was operating the camera.
And when we say Sheriff's Office helicopter, is that the same thing as saying the STAR unit?
Correct. That is the name for the aviation unit, STAR.
And I was also going to ask, can also be referred to as an aviation unit.
Correct.
So if we say helicopter STAR aviation, we're talking about the same helicopter that's in the air, correct?
Same thing, yes.
Was he also giving updates over the radio that day?
Yes, he was.
Did you hear any updates about the person Deputy Kafinas had identified as the suspect who was pointing guns at motorists?
Yes, I did.
And who did you hear that from?
I heard that from deputy teams.
And what did he say?
He was giving updated locations of where the suspect was traveling and his driving habits.
Did you also hear any updates from Deputy Kafinas?
Yes, I did.
And what update did you hear from him?
That he believed that he was behind the aggravated assault suspect.
Now, when he said that, did he say it using normal words like you just said it, or was he speaking in code?
He was speaking in codes.
Do law enforcement officers typically use codes when they're talking over the radio?
Yes.
Can you give an example of a common one for the jury just so that they understand what kind of codes we're talking about?
Most commonly one uses 10-4.
And what does 10-4 mean?
Okay.
And that's one that is just generally used by every agency, right? It's so common.
Yes.
But each individual agency, they have their own codes that they use over the radios as well, right?
Correct. Ours would be different from, say, Orange County.
What exactly did Deputy Kafinas say over the radio regarding the suspect?
That he was behind the 53 ag suspect.
And when you hear 53 ag, as also a kind of sheriff's deputy, what does that mean to you?
Aggravated assault.
And 53, what specifically does that mean?
53 is short for signal 53, which means at our agency assault.
And so when you hear ag, what does that mean?
Short for aggravated.
So when you hear 53 ag put together, what do the two of those two terms mean to you combined?
Aggravated assault.
As a law enforcement officer is pointing a firearm at others, aggravated assault.
Yes.
Does your training tell you anything about how you need to approach a subject of an aggravated assault with a firearm?
Yes.
And what is that?
That we are to treat that person as if they are armed and dangerous.
And where do you learn that from?
We learn it in the basic law enforcement academy and through advanced training at the sheriff's office.
So throughout the period of time between when the suspect of aggravated assault was first identified, all the way up until the point where you're making contact with that suspect at the Wawa, are you receiving updates from the helicopter unit?
Yes, I was.
And the suspect of the Wawa, just to be clear, is that the same suspect that was identified by Deputy Kafinas as a suspect in the aggravated assault?
Yes.
And you were receiving regular updates from the helicopter following him all the way from that location all the way to the Wawa, correct?
Correct.
And did you later identify that person as Gian Barreto Vallarga?
Yes.
Now, when you were receiving updates from the helicopter, what specifically were you being told about how he was operating his motorcycle?
That was operating in a reckless manner, running several red lights, weaving in and out of traffic, cutting cars off, driving on the wrong side of the road, driving down the sidewalk.
Did that cause you any concern?
Yes, it did.
Why?
Except the public, the other motorists on the road, and even pedestrians who are on the sidewalk in great jeopardy.
Were you eventually directed by the helicopter unit to the Wawa gas station?
Yes, it was.
Was that through radio transmissions?
Yes, it was.
Was that because the helicopter unit had told you that the suspect had arrived there?
Yes, it was.
Did you have any concerns about the safety of the public once he had arrived at the Wawa?
Yes, I did.
And why is that?
The fact that he was reported to be armed and that he had just fled, which the safety of the public in danger.
Did you have any concerns about the suspect being given a chance to flee again from the Wawa?
Absolutely.
Why is that?
It's like I said, when we respond to treat fleeing suspects as if they would flee again.
What was going through your mind when you arrived at the Wawa?
I was nervous due to the fact that he's at a very popular gas station and that the safety of everybody there was in jeopardy.
Is that based upon the reports you had received?
Yes.
The reports that he had committed or was a suspect in an aggravated assault with a firearm?
Yes.
And the reports that he had fled from police?
Yes.
And was it specifically Deputy Kafinas?
Objection, reading.
Sustained.
Did you hear which deputy had attempted the traffic stop on the
Yes.
suspect?
Yes, I did.
And who was that?
Deputy Kafinas.
At the time you arrived at the Wawa, did you believe that the motorcyclist, later identified as Breiter Bayerga, was a suspect who had earlier pulled a gun on motorists?
Yes.
Why?
Because that was the description that Deputy Kafinas had given and that the aviation unit had given.
The helicopter unit informed you that they followed this person all the way from when he fled from Deputy Kafinas' traffic stop to the Wawa.
Correct.
Was it the helicopter unit who relayed the information about this suspect to you prior to you arriving at the Wawa?
Yes.
Did Deputy Kafinas say anything about the particular suspect prior to you arriving at the Wawa?
Yes.
What was that?
That he believed he was the aggravated assault suspect and he had just fled from him.
What did you do when you saw the suspect?
Stood there to make sure he didn't notice my presence because I was afraid that he had the firearm and would use it if he noticed my presence.
And at some point, did you stand behind a pillar prior to making contact with him?
Objection, reading.
Sustained.
Prior to making physical contact with the suspect, did you do anything else at the Wawa prior to that?
Yes, I stood one aisle over behind a pillar
Why were you standing there behind that pillar?
to ensure he did not notice my presence and either pull the firearm on me or flee again.
Were there other deputies en route to your location?
Yes.
At some point, did you see any other deputies arrive?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And how exactly did you see them? Or can you just explain that movement for the chair?
I glanced to my left. I observed a marked patrol vehicle pulling in, coming around the corner, at which time I knew my backup was there, and that's when I ran and made contact with the suspect on the website.
Why did you approach the suspect when you did?
That was the first one to him.
As a law enforcement officer, is it your job to detain fleeing felons?
Yes, it is.
Is it your job to detain people suspected of aggravated assaults with firearms?
Yes, it is.
Why did you not announce your presence to the suspect before grabbing them?
I didn't want him to know that I was there. I wanted to surprise him. I did not want to give him the chance to have the ability to pull the firearm or flee on the motorcycle.
Why did you not immediately run up and grab them before you saw other units arrive?
For officer safety, I wanted to at least have other units there with me to assist me in detaining.
Before you actually made physical contact with the suspect, did you have a clear view of his gas tank?
I did not.
Why not?
His body was blocking it, and I had the sun in my eyes.
So can you describe, when you're looking at the suspect, what you're seeing from the angle where you're standing and where he's at?
I just observed him sitting on the motorcycle.
What part of his body was facing?
His back.
Was his body blocking your view of the gas tank?
Yes, it was.
Prior to arriving at the Wawa, did you hear anything over the radio about the suspect moving between gas pumps?
Yes, it did.
And what was that?
Aviation unit advised that he had stopped at one pump, and he was there for several minutes, and that he then moved up to another pump.
Did you think anything about that?
I thought he was trying to hide from the helicopter.
When you approached the suspect, what direction did you come from in relation to him?
To the right and a little behind.
Because you, yes, correct. And where was the suspect at that time in relation to the motorcycle?
He was still sitting on it.
From your position, were you able to see whether the gas cap was attached to the bike?
No, I did not.
And when I say bike, do you understand that to mean motorcycle or dirt bike?
Correct.
And we're using all those terms interchangeably?
Yes.
Why were you not able to see whether the gas cap was attached to the bike?
Once again, his body was blocking the view of the gas tank, and the sun was directly in my face and my eyes.
Did you realize the gas cap was off the tank?
No, I did not.
Did you see a nozzle in the gas tank?
No, I did not.
Why were you unable to see the nozzle?
Due to the fact that his body was blocking it, my ankle, and the sun was in my face.
And you've sat here today, throughout this week, and you've seen body-worn camera videos played for the jury, correct?
Correct.
And your own body-worn camera was played, correct?
Correct.
And in that body-worn camera, you can see the sun coming right at you, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever seen someone sitting on a motorcycle while they're filling it up with gas?
No, I have not.
So when you grabbed the suspect, did you realize at that time that gas was going to spill out the motorcycle?
No, I did not.
Did your actions in grabbing the suspect and taking him to the ground align with your training experience as a law enforcement officer?
Yes, it did.
Did you think it was necessary to arrest the suspect, Berto Berga, because he's a fleeing felon?
Yes.
Did you believe other members of the public would be put in danger if he was allowed to flee on his bike again?
Absolutely.
Did you think if given the chance he would flee on his bike again?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because we're trained that if they flee once, they're probably going to flee again.
What was your ultimate goal
Ultimate goal is to get him off the bike and get him into handcuffs.
and why?
To effect the arrest.
And were you making a lawful arrest?
Yes, I was.
Did you believe it was necessary to grab the suspect in the manner in which you did?
Yes.
Did you believe it was necessary to protect the public,
Absolutely.
including the civilians at the Wawa?
Yes.
Why is that?
Part of our job is to protect and serve.
And at that time, you were working as an Osceola County Sheriff's Deputy, correct?
Correct.
Did you and the other deputies lawfully pursue the suspect across county lines?
Yes.
Are law enforcement officers in Florida lawfully allowed to pursue suspects who flee outside their normal jurisdiction?
Yes, they are.
How much time elapsed between you making physical contact with the suspect and other deputies arriving to assist you?
Seconds.
Who was the first one there?
Deputy Phoenix.
A resisting suspect.
Yes, it is.
Is it something that is used in the field often?
Yes.
Does it sometimes gain compliance?
Yes.
Does it sometimes not?
Yes.
Did you ever have any intention of actually using a taser against the suspect?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because I knew we were gassed and I wanted to get the taser away from him.
Did you believe you could be lit on fire if the taser discharged?
Yes.
Is that due to the gasoline?
Yes.
Did you want to be lit on fire?
No.
Did you want to light Berto Berga on fire?
Absolutely not.
Did you develop the training materials for the police academy that you attended?
No, I did not.
Did you develop the training materials for the sheriff's office?
Did not.
Did you develop the training materials for the taser?
No, I did not.
Is it your job to develop training materials?
No, it is not.
As part of your job as a law enforcement officer, is it your job to listen to the training materials?
Yes, it is.
And are you instructed to follow your training?
Yes, we are.
Can you get in trouble if you don't follow your training?
Yes, we can.
What can happen if an officer doesn't follow the training he's been given by his agency?
It could be anything from a verbal counseling determination.
So when you said that the subject could be tased again if he didn't stop resisting, was that a statement of what you were intending to do?
No, it was not.
What was it then?
It was an attempt to gain compliance, de-escalation technique to get him into handcuffs.
And that is something that you've done before in the field?
Yes.
And that is something you've seen other officers do in the field?
Yes.
And that is something you were specifically taught to do in the field?
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury what was happening during the fire?
I was on fire. That's all. That's the only memory I have. I don't have a memory about much of it.
When the fire started and erupted, was the taser still in your hand?
No, it was not.
Where was it?
On the car.
So you saw the video, your body camera video earlier in this trial, correct?
Correct.
And you had saw where the taser is transferred from your right hand to the left, correct?
Correct.
At no time, or at any time, did you point the taser down at the suspect?
No, I did not.
Did you always keep it pointed away from him?
Yes, I did.
And then after you moved it from the right hand to the left, and you had already described this, so I just want to see if I have this right. You were on the ground, so you pick it up, you transfer it like this, keep it pointed straight ahead, you lean to the left, and you threw it under the car like that.
Correct.
You've thrown objects before generally, right?
Yes.
You've thrown a baseball.
Yes.
So when you throw an object, you have it in your hand, right?
Correct.
And then you start moving your hand and arm toward the direction where you want it to go.
Yes.
And then when you let go of that object, what happens to it?
It continues in that general direction.
So in this particular incident, when we see on the video that you're leaning to the left and moving the taser left, it goes off the video. Did you continue momentum to the left?
Yes, I did.
And then did you let go of the taser?
Yes, I did.
And did the taser leave your hand?
Yes, I did.
Did it continue traveling?
Yes.
In which direction?
Under the car.
Would you admit that the fire started at about the same time you were throwing the taser away?
Yes.
As you were engulfed in flames, were you aware of anything else?
No.
After you were engulfed in flames, did you take the time to turn the safety back on the taser?
No.
Could you have?
No.
Why not?
I was on fire. I was engulfed in flames. I wasn't thinking about anything else.
And where was the taser?
Under the car.
So it wasn't in your hands in the fire?
No.
When you were on fire, were you thinking about anything else?
No, it was not.
But based on your testimony, is it fair to say the taser was not in the fire?
Yes.
Now, going back to demonstrating, if you had picked up the taser and you were going to intentionally discharge it against a suspect beneath you, how would you have done that?
Objection, ask and answer.
So I believe we did already go over this. I have a new point I'm trying to make. So if you testified earlier that you would just pick it up and put it against them and drive stun, correct?
Correct.
Now, if you put it against them and drive stun them, and that ignited the fire, where would the taser have been in your hand when the fire started? Or where would the taser have been when the fire started?
I'm sorry, I guess.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of muddled that one. So if you pick up the taser and you drive stun them, and that caused the fire to erupt, right? Where would the taser be?
It would have been in my right hand.
Okay. So if you are deploying the taser against the suspect, underneath you, it would have still been in your hand when the fire erupted.
Objection, meeting.
Would it have still been in your hand when the fire erupted?
Yes.
You've had a chance to observe the taser throughout this trial, correct?
Correct.
Did you see any fire damage on it?
I did not.
Did you see melted plastic?
I did not.
Melted rubber?
No.
Burned plastic?
I did not.
Scorch marks?
I did not.
Was that taser in the fire?
No.
Why not?
Because it was under the car.
Did you ever intentionally discharge a taser at the Wawa?
No, I did not.
Did you believe the taser would go off when you threw it off to the left?
No.
No further questions.
Ms. Glenn?
You've testified before, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the members of the jury whether you did anything wrong on February 27th of 2022?
No, I did not.
Not a single thing that you would do differently about your actions that day,
No.
despite the fact that a person who did not have a firearm got burned over 65% of his body.
Objection. That's on evidence.
to be overruled.
May we approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Thank you.
Good?
Yes, sir.
So where we left off is you were telling us that you didn't do anything wrong that day.
Correct.
And you wouldn't do anything differently.
No.
Now, let's just be clear. Gian Barreto Baerga never had a firearm, right?
I was unable to search him, so I did not.
Well, when he was being tased in his waistband, you didn't see a firearm, right?
I'm sorry?
When he was being tased on the ground, you could see his waistband on body camera, there was no firearm present, was there?
I did not see one there.
So are you sitting here telling this jury today that you're not aware of whether or not he had a firearm?
I did not have the chance to search him.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you if you're aware, as you sit here today, whether or not he ever had a firearm.
No.
You're not aware.
The one was never located. I have no idea.
And you said two things there. One was never located, is that what you just said?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what you just said was Gian Barreto Baerga never had a firearm because one was never located, right?
That I am aware of, no.
Correct. You didn't see one, correct?
Not in a fast-moving situation, no.
Right. And you saw the crime scene investigator, they didn't talk about finding one, right?
Correct.
Right. So Mr. Barreto Baerga, to your knowledge, never had a firearm.
Not that I am aware of.
Not that you're aware of. Okay. So, despite the fact that this man did not have a firearm and was burned over 65% of his body, if confronted with the same situation today, you would do it all the same.
As relying on my information given to me, yes.
So I'd like to just see if we can get some basic agreement on some facts. Can we agree that you knocked the victim off his bike when you tackled him?
When I pushed him off the bike, yes.
And can we agree that he was sitting at a gas pump when you did that?
Yes.
Can we agree that knocking him off his bike resulted in gasoline spilling all over the ground?
Yes.
Can we agree that there was a danger of fire breaking out because of your actions?
No.
You don't agree that you were knocking him off the bike and spilling gasoline caused the danger of fire? Is that what you're telling me?
Correct.
What don't you agree about with that?
That I had no idea that the gas cap was off and the fuel was spilling from the bike.
That's what you knew or thought. What I'm asking is, when you knocked him off the bike and it spilled gasoline over, you already agreed with that, did that cause a danger of fire?
Yes.
Okay. And can we agree that you were very aware of the danger of fire in the moments following that decision?
I'm sorry?
Can we agree that you were aware of the danger of fire in the moments following you knocking him off the bike?
No.
So when you said, kill the pump, there's gas, what did that mean to you?
At that time, yes. I was aware of the gasoline and the pump needed to be shut off.
Please listen carefully to the questions I asked. I said, after you knocked him off the bike, were you aware of a danger of gasoline?
Not immediately, no.
Okay. So when did you become aware of a danger of gasoline?
When I announced it.
All right. So you didn't think there was any danger to knocking him off the bike at the gas pump?
No.
it never dawned on you that doing that at the gas station might create a danger for the public?
No.
And there's no doubt that Kafinas fired the taser the first time or discharged it, right?
Correct.
And there's no doubt that he cycled it a second time or drive stoned, right?
Correct.
So are you blaming Deputy Kafinas for the fire?
No.
Okay. So can we agree that you picked the taser up off the ground
Yes.
and you took it from your right hand and put it in your left hand?
Yes, I did.
And can we agree that you shut, according to your testimony, you turned off or turned the safety on, right?
Turn the safety on?
Right.
Yes.
And then after turning the safety on, you said to the victim, you're going to get tased again.
Yes.
And can we agree that the evidence shows that after that occurred, the safety was turned off?
I have no memory of turning it off.
Right. So you've been sitting here in the courtroom for the last 3 days, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So you're aware that the evidence has established that after your statement, the safety on the taser was armed. So it was turned off. The safety was turned off.
I understand what the evidence says, but my recollection is no. I do not have any memory of it.
That's why I asked it the way that I did. So you got to listen, okay? So can we agree that the evidence has shown that after you said you're going to get tased again, the safety was turned off?
Yes.
And can we agree that within a second of that, the trigger was pulled on the taser?
I don't know the time, but yes.
Very short in time. Can we agree on that?
Very short time, yes.
And that the fire started almost immediately. Can we agree on that?
No.
Okay, what don't you agree with on that?
That it was never, that I don't believe the fire started immediately, no.
Upon discharge of the taser, it's your testimony that it did not start immediately.
Upon discharge of the taser?
Right.
Upon the taser going off, yes.
Right, okay. So I want to go in, now that we sort of have some agreement about some facts, I want to go into some of the more specific details. You were the first deputy on the scene, correct?
Correct.
And I believe you said that you were listening to the radio traffic that day.
Correct.
And because of the radio traffic, you knew where to go. Is that right?
Well, it was relayed, yes.
Right. So you knew other deputies and units were responding at the time, correct?
Yes.
Right. But you didn't wait for them to take action.
No.
No. Now, there was nothing prohibiting you from waiting for the other 3 and eventually 4 deputies to arrive and encircle the suspect, was there?
Yes.
What was preventing you from doing that?
The fact that he observed law enforcement that he was leaving.
Okay. And did you watch him do anything that led you to believe he was looking for law enforcement? Did you see that?
Did I see that?
Right.
No.
No. All right. So you decided to make an approach on your own, right?
As other deputies were there, yes.
So can we agree that worst case scenario in that moment, if the other deputies arrive, he takes off and the helicopter continues to follow him, right?
Okay.
Can we agree on that?
Yes.
Right. There was no other danger present in that moment.
With him leaving, yes.
Listen carefully. In that moment, as he's sitting on the bike, was there any other danger to anyone else?
No.
No. So your concern was that he would start to ride and flee again, correct?
Or potentially pull the fire.
Can we agree that an explosion at a gas station full of people is a bigger concern than the dirt bike running on the roads?
Not necessarily.
Okay. So it's your belief that the gas pumps exploding is not as significant as him fleeing on the dirt bike and being followed by the helicopter?
No, not necessarily, no.
Okay. So you didn't wait because you wanted to prevent him from taking off. Is that right?
Or observing law enforcement pulling in and pulling the fire off.
Because what I heard you say earlier was on direct examination, to make sure I get it right, is that your ultimate goal is to effect arrest.
Correct.
Okay. But you would agree that that's not the primary concern of law enforcement.
I'm not understanding.
Right. What is law enforcement's primary concern?
To protect and serve.
Right. To make sure that everyone involved is protected to the greatest extent possible. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And would you agree that there were obvious environmental dangers in the situation at the gas station?
Yes.
There would be better places to try to take the suspect into custody. Can we agree on that?
Not necessarily.
No, there's no place safer than a crowded gas station on a Sunday afternoon?
We wouldn't want to do it at an intersection where there's numerous people. We wouldn't want to do it where we move on and where we stop at. We wouldn't want to let them continue.
Agreed. He could stop somewhere else, right? The helicopter is going to follow him,
Good.
right? Okay. So, do you remember, were you concerned? I think you said you were concerned about the firearm that he had. That was your understanding?
Correct. Yes.
Right. And is it your testimony here today that Jean Barreto Baerga matched the description of the person who was alleged to have a firearm?
Yes.
You're 100% certain about that?
That was relayed to me. Yes.
You're 100% certain that the radio traffic is going to confirm that Jean Barreto Baerga matched the suspect with the firearm? I
Yes.
just want you to be clear for later on.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can we agree that you had upwards of 20 seconds to observe the situation as you approached?
I don't know the time, but
Well, where did you park your vehicle?
on the, I believe it'd be the north side of the Wawa building.
Right, that's the opposite side of the pumps.
Well, in front of them, yes.
In front of you. Tell me what you mean by that.
Closest to the store.
Right. So you had to walk past the store or around the side of the store and then get to the pumps on the other side.
Correct.
Right. So what were you thinking about as you were making that walk all the way over to the pillars?
I was thinking about the safety of everybody there and hoping he wouldn't see me and either pull the firearm or flee again.
You were thinking about the safety of everybody there. Okay. How long did you have to think about that?
A few seconds.
A few seconds, like two? Few can mean different things.
A few seconds. I can't put a time on it.
Would it be more like 30 seconds that it took you to walk from your car, observe the situation at the station, and get up to the pillar?
I would say a few seconds.
Is 30 a few? make this
Everybody's
whole-
perception is different.
I'm asking you what your
Judge, I'm going to
perception
object
is.
past the answer. You already said you couldn't put a time on it.
It's the same.
What is your perception of a few seconds?
A few seconds, 10, 15, 20 seconds.
So can you describe for the members of the jury what you were seeing as you were walking from your car over towards the gas pumps?
Through the fence sitting on the motorcycle, as I was walking up, I observed people around.
Okay, you observed, so you were aware that people were around,
Yes.
right? Were you specifically aware that children were around?
At the time, I did not see any.
Right. So you said that as you were walking up, you were concerned about protecting the public. Did you make it a point to look out to see who else was present, what other civilians were present at the time?
Quick glance, yes.
Right. If your primary concern was the safety, right, because your focus and your goal was to effect the arrest of the suspect.
And protect the citizens at the wall.
Okay. And you didn't think you could do both at the same time.
Not in a high-stress situation.
Okay. So now it's your testimony that you were highly stressed as you strolled from your car over to the pillar.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, and forgive me, I forget your answer. Did you see the children or not?
No, not at that time, no.
You did not know. Did you ever become aware of the children?
No, I did not.
So, again, in hindsight, looking back, did you try to be more aware of the surroundings around the gas pumps and the people that are present if you had to do this all over again?
I was aware as much as I could be while continuing to maintain a visual on the suspect.
Okay, so you in your testimony is you knew everything you needed to know or could know at the time.
Yes.
So earlier you were talking about your statement about your intention to tase the suspect. Do you remember that? Let me rephrase it because I can see your face already. you were talking about your statement that you're going to get tased again. You remember talking about that?
Yes, I do.
Right. And I believe your testimony was that you made that statement to de-escalate the situation.
Yes.
And at some point, you described this situation as chaotic, right?
Yes.
Right. Would you agree that prior to your arrival, there was nothing chaotic going on at the gas station?
Prior to my arrival?
Right. As you're walking up, there was no chaos at the gas station.
None that I can see now.
Right. So it was your arrival that caused the chaos, correct?
No.
It wasn't.
No.
So what caused the chaos at the gas station if it wasn't you and your decision to tackle the victim?
The suspect's resisting efforts.
Okay, so let's back up. Let's
Judge,
back up.
objection. He has to allow the witness to actually answer the question before cutting him off.
Would you like to finish?
Yes, sir, please.
Go ahead.
That the suspect was resisting our efforts to get him in custody, that we had to continue to yell loud verbal commands in order to gain compliance to an attempt to get him in custody.
So I know you want to talk about that, and we'll get to that. What I want to talk about is your decision to tackle him. So prior to your decision to tackle him, there was no chaos at the gas station. Right. Did anybody else that you're aware of interact with this suspect prior to you?
Deputy Kafinas.
Prior to you,
Did
Deputy
you stop
Kafinas.
this?
So Deputy Kafinas got to the suspect on the bike first?
No.
No, you were the first one.
Correct.
Right. And the chaos started when you pushed him off the bike and the gasoline spilled out.
It started with his resisting efforts.
What resisting was the suspect engaging in as he sat on the bike looking down at his phone?
Those resisting efforts? None.
None. Okay. And that's what you were aware of at the time. What he was doing in that moment when you went to make the arrest is he's sitting on his bike looking down at his phone.
I didn't know what he was doing. I know he was sitting on the bike.
You didn't see that he was looking down?
No.
You just told everybody that you were so scared of the firearm he had and you weren't even looking to see what he was doing?
I saw his back, and the sun was in my eyes as well.
Okay, so the sun blocked your view of what his head was doing but not his back. Is that what you're testifying to?
Correct.
Okay. So given that you couldn't see what he was doing, did you still think it was wise to charge at him headlong and knock him off?
Once other deputies were there, yes.
No, sir. You charged at him and knocked him off the bike prior to any other deputy's arrival.
Objection. Counsel testifying.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that you charged at the suspect and knocked him off the bike prior to the other deputies arriving?
No.
So it's your belief, because they'll get to see the video, it's your belief that the other deputies had already arrived prior to you making that decision.
They were in the parking lot. They arrived on scene. Yes, sir.
Okay, so they're in the parking lot, but they're certainly not in an area where they can help you.
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right. So it's your testimony that you believed the suspect had a gun.
Yes, sir.
And your decision in that moment, according to you, not knowing what he was doing, was to charge at him headlong.
To run him, yes.
Right. So is it my understanding that the firearm concerns you for your very life?
Yes.
Right. You never drew your taser, right?
No, sir.
You never drew your firearm.
No, sir.
You never attempted any de-escalation techniques prior to having your first contact with the victim.
No.
So there's been a lot of testimony, and I think you agree that de-escalation through verbal threats is a technique that you were taught.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be better to use de-escalation techniques prior to knocking the suspect off the bike?
No.
No.
No, sir.
Why not?
Because that would involve revealing myself, and I have no cover, and with him being suspected of having a firearm and giving him the chance to then pull this said firearm, and now there would be a chance of a shootout at the gas station.
So if the concern was revealing yourself, then why did you run at him? Why not just stay behind the pillar and wait for backup?
I did wait for backup.
You
And
did.
I waited for backup when I observed them, and then when I observed them in the parking lot pulling up, that's when I decided to come out from behind him off to the right and take him off the dirt bike.
So So you heard, now we're going to go to the part that you wanted to talk about. You heard Kafinas start to tase the suspect, right?
Correct.
And you saw the taser in his hand, correct?
Correct.
And that concerned you, right?
Yes.
Because according to your testimony, you knew that the gas pumps and the taser were dangerous.
Correct.
And can we agree that regardless of what your training was, using a taser or electrical device around gas pumps is inherently dangerous?
Yes.
And I think you said that you had that training about a month prior to your involvement in this incident. Is that fair?
Yes.
So, shortly after Deputy Kafinas and yourself go hands-on with the suspect, you had a third deputy arrive. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's Deputy McLean.
Yes, it was.
Right. So, at some point, there are 3 deputies over this one person, correct?
Correct.
Right. At that stage, wouldn't it have been more prudent to try and apply handcuffs?
Yes.
Did you ever take out your handcuffs to apply them?
No, I did not.
So if McLean has one arm and Kafinas is on the other, why didn't you remove and try to apply your handcuffs?
Because they were never able to get his arms out from under him.
I understand that. But if they've got one arm each and you're on top of his back, why wouldn't you start to apply or get ready to apply your handcuffs?
Because they never had his arms behind his back.
I didn't say that. Listen carefully. If he's on the ground,
Ask an answer. He just gave his answer.
overruled. If the suspect is on the ground,
Correct.
and McLean is on one arm trying to pull it out, and Kafinas is on the other, and you're on top of him, why didn't you try to apply handcuffs?
Because we're not trying to put handcuffs on until the arms are behind their back and we have gained control of the suspect.
So what were you doing?
I was trying to keep him from getting up. I was holding his legs and his lower body down.
Okay. Can we agree that Mr. Barreto was a small guy?
I don't know his height or weight.
So you don't know anything about that?
No, sir.
Okay. The safety on the taser requires a physical force to arm and disarm, right?
Yes.
Right. And it's your testimony that you threw the taser to the left.
Yes.
And we're certainly aware of evidence that the taser, 'cause it's not just one back. Is it your contention that the taser just went off?
Yes.
So that means that in addition to the taser just going off, it just, I don't know, magically the safety was disarmed?
I don't know, sir.
So is it your testimony that, well, was it flying through the air? Is that when it happened? Or was it when it landed? I'm trying to understand how the taser could, the manual safety on the taser could arm itself again if it wasn't in your hand when that happened. Can you explain that to me? Or more importantly to them?
What do you mean by arm itself? I'm
Right, so you testified that you disarmed the safety on the taser. When you picked it up off the ground, you disarmed the safety. You disarmed the
Objection,
weapon.
Judge. Misstating the facts.
Oh, no.
May we approach?
You may.
So, your testimony was that you put the safety into the on position, disarming the weapon when you picked it up.
Yes, turning the safety on, yes.
But we know that the firearm, the taser, the safety on the taser was deactivated and the weapon was armed in this incident within seconds.
Yes, sir.
And it's your testimony that it was not in your hand when that happened.
I have no memory of turning
Oh.
the safety on or off.
Well, that's different.
On.
That's different. So,
Judge,
let's,
objection, can you allow the witness to actually finish speaking before he cuts him off?
All right, Mr. Crawford, you may answer the question.
I have no memory of turning the safety off on the taser.
so I want to make a distinction between the two things here. One situation is you threw the taser, you remember that, and it armed itself after it left your hand. I'm not asking if that happened, I'm saying that's one situation. Are you with me?
Okay.
Another situation is you armed the weapon.
Objection, asking the witness hypotheticals. He's not an expert.
Was not.
Sustained.
Another situation is you testify that you don't remember arming the weapon.
Objection, Judge, same objection, asking hypotheticals.
Overruled.
So which one is the one that happened? That's what I want to know.
Judge, objection, he is now referring to the first question that you sustained his objection on as a hypothetical. And he's asking to compare it to. We will just strike the first question and now the third question.
Mr. Lynch, could you just restate your question, please?
Yes. Did you throw it and it went off afterwards? Or is it possible it was in your hand and you just don't remember?
I have no memory of turning the safety off.
Okay, so it's possible, what you're now saying, that the taser was in your hand and you armed it, and you just don't remember.
I have no memory of that.
Right? So that would mean it's also possible that the taser was still in your hand and you pulled the trigger on it too, right?
No.
No. All right, so that we're all clear on what you're saying. It is possible that the taser was in your hand and you armed the weapon and disarmed the safety. That's possible. You just don't remember.
I have no memory of that.
Right. So why would you do that unless you're going to fire it?
I have no memory of turning the safety off.
Right? Why would you try to de-escalate after you've already escalated the situation?
I'm sorry?
Right, so what you said was you gave a threat to discharge the taser in an attempt to de-escalate the situation. That's your testimony.
Correct.
Right. But it would have been inappropriate to try to de-escalate it before it started. Can you explain that to me?
I'm not understanding your question, sir.
Right. You said you couldn't use de-escalation before you knocked them off the bike.
Correct.
Right? But you could use de-escalation in this chaotic situation.
Yes, sir.
Right? With the hope that he would hear you.
As I screamed the commands yes, and as other deputies were screaming their commands yes.
So it's coincidence that you scream, you're going to get tased again, and then the taser discharges. That's just coincidence.
Yes.
Yes. Did I hear you correctly earlier that you said Deputy Kafinas told you that Bereto Bayarga matched the description of the suspect?
Yes.
Okay. So if he told you that over the radio, we would be able to hear it.
Yes.
Okay. Because the radio traffic is recorded and everybody can come in and say what they need to say.
Yes, sir.
And can we agree that the victim in this case was wearing a red helmet?
Red or orange, yes.
Right. It certainly wasn't a black helmet.
Yes, sir.
So can we agree that if you didn't listen carefully to the description of the suspect, that would be a problem.
That was a description that your Phoenix gave.
Different answer to a different question. Can we agree that if you didn't listen carefully to the suspect's description, that would be a problem?
Yes.
Right? Because that would mean that you would end up pursuing someone who had not committed a crime. Or the crime for which you think you're pursuing. How about that?
Not necessarily.
Right? Would you agree that it's important for law enforcement to get the right person?
Correct.
Right? Because, and would you also agree that your actions on this day were dictated by your belief that he had a gun?
That was relayed to me, yes.
Right. And it's your testimony that what was relayed to you was that the suspect matched what you saw on Jean Barreto bike.
Yes.
Because if you didn't listen carefully enough and got the wrong person, that would be reckless. Can we agree with that?
Yes.
Yes. Because you, according to you, are relying on the radio traffic to make sure you've got the right person, right?
Yes.
And if you didn't listen carefully enough and you got the wrong person, a man could be burned even though he never had a firearm in the first place. That's possible.
I'm sorry, no matter.
Right. If you got the wrong description and didn't hear it right, or weren't careful, a man can get burned because you think he has a gun.
The description that was given to me is the suspect that I took down.
Okay. So, you sort of wrap up here. You wait and hide behind a pillar, right?
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
After you walked up to the scene, the original scene, correct?
Yes.
According to you, you never saw any of the children who were on the scene
Correct.
because you were focused on making the arrest.
Correct.
And you decided to run and knock them off the bike, right?
Yes.
And we agreed that doing that caused gasoline to spill everywhere, correct?
Yes.
And can we further agree that the tussle and the fight that occurred happened mere feet from a father and a son? We agree on that.
That I was unaware of, yes.
Because you didn't look. You were unaware of it because you didn't look.
I did look, sir.
You just didn't see them according to your testimony,
Correct.
even though they were right there.
Correct.
You knew there was gas, right?
Yes, sir.
And you picked up the taser.
Yes, sir.
According to you, you disarmed the weapon, right?
Yes.
You told the suspect he was going to get tased again.
Yes.
The weapon was armed, right?
Yes.
And then the taser discharged.
Yes.
And it's possible that you armed the weapon back and you just don't remember.
I have no memory of that.
So going through all of that, do you remember or do you believe you made any mistakes on February 27th of 2022?
No, I did not.
If you had to do it all over again, you wouldn't do anything different.
No, sir.
That's all I have, Judge.
All right, Mr. Barber.
Deputy Crawford, how many eyes do you have?
Sorry. 2.
And where are they located?
Front of my face.
Do you have eyes on the side of your head?
No, I do not.
Behind your head?
No, I do not.
Are you able to see 3 inches 60 degrees all around you at all times?
No.
So if you're looking at one particular person or object, are you able to see everything else that's going around in the entire area at the same time?
No.
Now, you talked a lot, or the state asked you a lot about, whether you had any memory about turning the safety off, correct?
Correct.
And when we say that, we're talking about arming the taser.
Correct.
Now, when you said you have no memory of it, are you talking about your actual, like your cognitive memory, like your actual memories, your thoughts, what you can remember?
Yes.
I want to talk to you a little more about muscle memory. Can you talk to the jury one more time about what muscle memory is and explain it?
So muscle memory is doing a repeated action over and over again so that it becomes second nature to you.
So when you say second nature, based on muscle memory, are you taking certain actions without even thinking about it?
Yes.
Are they subconscious?
Yes.
And is that due to your training as a law enforcement officer teaching you to draw a weapon the same way over and over and over?
Yes.
Would you say you have drawn a taser countless times the same way every time?
Countless.
And when you draw your taser in the field, based on your muscle memory, based on your training, do you always flick off the safety at that time?
No.
Okay, in the field, when you draw your taser, do you draw it the same way every single time?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you draw your taser, you practice that over and over, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when you draw your taser, as part of your process in drawing the taser, what hand do you draw it with?
I draw with my right.
What do you do with it after that?
I transition it to my left.
Why do you do that?
I'm left-hand dominant.
So you do things with your left hand.
Yes.
Every time you draw your taser and you're transferring it from the right hand to the left, is there another action that you always do without thinking about it?
I turn the safety off.
And is that due to your muscle memory?
Yes.
That is something you were taught as a law enforcement officer, correct?
Yes.
This wasn't taught just to you, was it?
No.
Is this something all law enforcement officers are trained in?
Beyond the scope of the cost, it's already been asked and answered.
Sustained.
The state was asking you on cross whether you ever locate a firearm, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever have the chance to get the suspect in handcuffs and search him?
No.
Do you have any knowledge, one way or the other, about whether at that time, sorry, let me rephrase that question, because that's what we're looking at that time. At that moment, you're interacting with the suspect. Did you believe he had a firearm?
Yes.
Were you ever able to rule that out during all of your interactions with him?
No.
What does your training tell you to assume in a situation like that?
That they are armed and they're willing to use the firearm.
Is it relevant or not whether a firearm was later found or not?
No.
At the time, are you only able to rely upon information you have at that moment?
Yes.
Now, do you have any psychic abilities, Deputy?
I'm not aware of.
Can you tell the future?
No.
So, when you're trying to make a decision in the field with a resisting suspect, do you have to rely upon the information you know at that time?
Yes.
Does it help you in your decision at that moment in time to learn about, to incorporate information that you learned years later?
No.
Now, I want to talk a little more about what you knew at the time. Discussing the description. Was the helicopter hovering above the Wawa gas station at the time you arrived?
Yes.
And based upon all the radio traffic you listened to, that helicopter had followed the suspect all the way from when he fled from Deputy Kafinas' traffic stop to the Wawa, correct?
Correct.
And that helicopter specifically directed you to that specific person.
Yes.
And Deputy Kafinas had specifically told you that was the suspect of the aggravated assault.
Over the radio, yes.
So when you said he matched the description, were you referring to the description given you by the helicopter telling you, that's our guy?
Yes.
Are law enforcement officers prohibited from arresting people at gas stations?
No.
It's not off limits?
No.
So criminal suspects can't go to a gas station and claim sanctuary and they're untouchable?
Correct.
Now, the state asked whether there was somewhere better you could have arrested him. Where did you encounter the suspect?
At the gas station.
Is that why you tried to arrest him at the gas station?
Yes.
Now, the state talked about that there was no indication that he was going to flee, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree the best indicator of future actions is to look at people's immediate past actions?
Yes.
And prior to arriving at the Wawa, had he been fleeing from police?
Yes.
While he was at the Wawa, in your mind, was that a continuation of him fleeing from the police?
Yes.
Did you already testify that you thought he was hiding from the helicopter?
Yes.
So the state asked about whether it would have been better to allow him to just leave. In your mind, would there have been any dangers posed by allowing him to just take off again?
Absolutely.
And what are those dangers?
The way he was driving previously, he put the public at risk, all the motorists, pedestrians. I believe that he would have done it again.
Now, as a law enforcement officer, are you aware that sometimes there are vehicular accidents on the roads
Yes.
where cars crash into each other?
Yes.
Based on your training experience as a law enforcement officer, are those more likely to occur when people are driving recklessly,
Yes.
when they're running red lights,
Yes.
when they're speeding,
Yes.
when they're cutting in and out traffic?
Yes.
Do car accidents sometimes result in fatalities?
They do.
Can people die in car accidents?
Yes, they can.
Did you believe there was a possibility that if he fled, he was going to put other people's lives at danger?
Yes.
I should have said in danger, but I think you got what I meant.
I understand, sir.
Now, the state asked you whether you had seen any evidence that the safety was turned off on the firearm, correct?
Sorry.
Did the state asked you about whether you saw evidence at the trial about the safety being turned off on the taser, correct?
Correct.
When you said that, were you referring to the taser data that was displayed?
Yes.
Did you see any other evidence showing that the safety was turned off?
No.
So when you had said that, you were discussing specifically the taser data.
Correct.
And just to be clear, that's the same taser data that reported a false trigger pull, correct?
Correct.
Now, the state was asking you questions repeatedly about why you didn't wait for other deputies, correct?
Correct.
On direct, when you first talked to me, did you not state that Deputy Kafinas arrived a second, or he actually made contact with the suspect a second after you?
Yes.
And there were other units all converging at the same time, correct?
Correct.
Were there multiple other deputies at the Wawa property before you went and grabbed the suspect?
Yes.
So you did wait for backup.
Yes.
In a situation like that, does one law enforcement officer necessarily always have to be the first one in?
Sorry.
In a situation where multiple law enforcement officers are trying to arrest someone,
Correct.
right? Someone always has to be first, right?
Correct.
I think someone always has to be the first over the trench, right?
Yes.
Is it always you in every single situation?
No.
Was it in this situation?
Yes.
Why?
I was the first one to get to him.
Now, the state asked you whether you saw any indication that he was aware law enforcement was present, correct?
Correct.
Weren't you, in fact, specifically trying to prevent him from being aware of law enforcement's presence?
Yes.
And can you remind the jury why that's important?
It's important because he was reported to have a firearm, and if he saw law enforcement approaching him, he could use that firearm or he could flee again.
Now, the state was asking you, well, why didn't you de-escalate before you grabbed him, correct?
Correct.
So, in that specific situation, why didn't you just walk up to him and say, "Excuse me, sir, may I have your firearm, please?"
Officer safety would be in jeopardy.
Does the fact that he'd been fleeing from police affect your thought process at all about whether he would ever willfully comply with such a request?
Yes,
And what is that?
that he wouldn't, and that he would flee again.
Now, the state asked if he took off, the helicopter could have followed him, correct?
Correct.
Do you know how long that helicopter can stay in the air?
No.
Do you know how long it had been in the air prior to that point?
No.
Do you know for sure whether that helicopter could have continued following him?
No.
If the helicopter was able to continue following him, is there anything that helicopter could have done, being up in the sky, to prevented him from causing a car accident?
No.
Or from even causing fatalities due to a car accident that he caused?
No.
So the helicopter following him doesn't actually keep the public safe, does it?
No.
The state kept asking you on cross about whether it's your job to protect the public, right?
Correct.
Did you believe that by arresting the suspect in the manner in which you did, you were protecting the public?
Yes.
Now, the state kept asking you whether you would cause the chaos by grabbing him and knocking the bike over, right?
Correct.
If you never received a report that that suspect had pulled a firearm or motorist, would you ever have been even looking for him?
No.
If that suspect did not flee from Deputy Kafinas' traffic stop, would you have ever been following him?
No.
Was it the suspect's actions that led you to the Wawa?
Yes.
Was it the suspect's actions that caused you to grab him and take him to the ground?
Yes.
The state asked whether you had observed him resisting in any way as he was sitting on the bike. You remember that?
Yes.
And at that exact moment, he was not, correct?
Correct.
Is that because you hadn't tried arresting him yet?
Correct.
Can somebody resist arrest if there's no one trying to arrest them?
No.
But at that moment, he had been fleeing, correct?
Correct.
Would another way to say that would be to say he was resisting Deputy Kafinas' attempt to pull him over and arrest him
Correct.
for fleeing and eluding
Yes.
and for aggravated assault with firearm.
Yes.
Now the state asked you, well, what do you mean you couldn't see him look down? I'm going to, Your Honor, may I approach you between my client and the jury?
You may.
Thank you. What exactly am I looking at right now?
Jury. Wall.
What about now?
I know it.
What about now?
No clue.
Can you see what my eyes are doing if you're looking at the back of my head?
No, sir.
Now, the state asked you about you never pulling your gun or your taser, correct?
Correct.
Did you believe that grabbing the suspect and taking him to the ground in the manner in which you did was much safer than pulling a firearm?
Yes.
Was it much safer than pulling your taser?
Yes.
In your mind, was that the safest course of action based upon all the information known to you at that moment?
Yes.
Would you agree that grabbing someone and taking them to the ground is less force than shooting them?
Yes.
The state asked you whether the suspect was a small guy, right?
Yes.
And you said you didn't know?
Correct.
You had never in your life, sorry, let me rephrase that, that's immediately. Had you ever in your life seen that suspect before you encountered him at the Wawa?
No.
Have you ever seen him since in real life?
No.
Would it be fair then to say that your entire interaction with that person was in about that 15 seconds in which you were struggling with them?
Yes.
Is that why you're not able to estimate what his height and weight was?
Correct.
Did you have other things on your mind at the time?
Yes.
Now, the state asked you if it was possible that the taser discharged and caused the fire, right?
Correct.
Do you know whether that happened?
No.
Do you know whether even for sure whether that taser even went off?
No.
Do you have any personal knowledge about whether you had ever turned off the safety after you had picked up the firearm?
Did I turn off the safety?
Correct. Do you remember ever doing that based on your personal knowledge?
No.
Is the only evidence you've seen even suggesting that that is what happened based on the data?
Yes.
And that's the same data that showed a trigger pull that never happened, right?
Correct.
Do you know for sure how that fire started?
No.
So I want to clarify one thing, talking about the description. When you said that you matched the description, did you mean based on all the description of colors of clothing and stuff that he's wearing, or were you referring to the fact that the helicopter unit directed you to that specific person?
I was relying on the helicopter.
And is that what you're trained to do, rely on information given to you by other units?
Yes.
If you had ignored that instruction from the helicopter and he took off, do you think there could have been dangers posed?
Objection, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Yes.
And if people had gotten hurt based on your inaction because he took off, could you have been in trouble for that?
Yes.
Would that have been reckless?
Yes.
Based on all the information known to you at that time, at that moment, did you take the best course of action that you thought was the safest for everyone in the area?
Yes.
No further questions.
Recall 60 seconds, Judge.
No problem.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understand. Are you telling the jury that your belief that this suspect had a firearm came from the helicopter telling you that?
Deputy Phoenix.
Okay. I thought I heard you say a minute ago that that came from the helicopter.
It was related from Deputy Phoenix to the helicopter, which related.
Okay, so when we listen to the helicopter traffic, it's going to say that this suspect at the gas station had a gun.
The message, yes.
Right? And when we listen to the radio traffic, we're going to hear Deputy Kafinas say that this particular suspect had a gun.
That he was the suspect, yes.
No. You said that this particular suspect had a gun.
That he possibly had a gun and he was the suspect.
Well, now it's possible. So are you telling us that you're not sure that he had a gun?
I have no personal knowledge. I'm going to base it off.
I'm sorry. Finish.
objection, then you'd be allowed to finish.
Finish. I'm sorry, Judge. Go ahead, sir.
I have no personal knowledge. I'm relying on what Deputy Phoenix and the helicopter advised me.
I understand that, and you've told us that. But I want to make sure, as I understand, where you're getting that information you rely on. So, what you said, and if I'm wrong, tell me, that Deputy Kafinas says over the radio that this is the person who has a gun.
That he believes he is the suspect of the aggravated assault.
That he believes.
Yes. That he said that he believes that he's the suspect and that he was fleeing from us.
And we're going to hear that on the radio.
Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you. So
I was going to see if I could just clear one thing up, Judge. That's all right. We're going to be real quick. So when you are responding to a report that somebody is a suspect in an aggravated assault with a firearm, just by the fact that you hear that, do you know for sure 100% without doing any investigation that person has a firearm?
No.
Are you trained to believe that they do?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further, Judge.
Members of the jury, I think we're going to do our schedule a little differently today. I think now is probably a good time to break for lunch. And we will then resume court today again at 1 o'clock as opposed to 1:30. Again, please just follow the instruction I've been giving you all week not to watch any of the local news, talk about the case with each other, anyone else would do any research, okay? Enjoy your lunch.
Jury is exiting.
Okay. I had broken 11:30 so that Deputy Crawford could come back to the table so that the jurors wouldn't see his crutches. But we're on lunch recess now till 1 o'clock. Is there anything that we need to talk about or go over from the state's perspective now?
No,